Okay, in this one, I'm going to show you how to make one of these liminal space pool rooms. It's pretty beginner friendly. It's not that hard to do. Um, and if you like stuff like this, then I post somewhat regularly on like Tumblr, and I'm trying to be more regular with YouTube. I don't use Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. Those are garbage as far as I'm concerned. So, um, yeah, follow me on Tumblr, subscribe to the channel if you see something you like. If not, then, keep scrolling. All right, so we'll just start with add a cylinder. Come in here, rotate y-axis 90 degrees. By the way, I've remapped some of my shortcuts, so just keep an eye on the screencast keys down here and then what's happening in the viewport if you kind of get confused. So first I want to scale all this up to 3 feet because I'm not even going to pretend to know what a meter is. I don't know meters, I know feet. That's how my blender is set up. Sorry, not sorry. All right, now I'm going to scale a little bit more on the x-axis, and then we can go into edit mode, face select, grab these and delete those faces. Let's go ahead and grab loop cut and add some extra geometry. So 22 looks good. And then back into object mode, we can add a solidify modifier. Doesn't have to be like anything crazy. Like that'll be good. Go ahead and apply that. Back over here in edit mode, grab these face select, grab these outer rings of faces, and then inset just a little bit, maybe. Okay, there we go. Okay, inset those a little bit, and then grab this very outer tiny edge of faces on both sides. There. And then Alt E F to extrude along normals. So like about like that, because this is like a modular slide piece. So these rings are like where one piece connects to the next piece. And that's pretty much it. Shade that smooth and then make sure you apply scale, but when you apply scale, do rotation as well. And now we can add curve, spiral. You need the extra curve objects add-on enabled. So if you don't have that, just do it in preferences. And then these settings here are pretty good for like this spiral slide. So that'll work. Come back over here into object mode. We're going to add an array modifier and then a curve modifier. On the curve modifier, go ahead and select the spiral and array that up. Go about halfway, because what we're going to do, even though we had already scaled to 3 feet, once you get it going up the spiral, you kind of have to play with the scale to get it to where you like it. So I'm going to go, well, first of all, I'm going to back down on the array and then scale a little bit more. So probably like, I think that looks good. I think that's almost like exactly what we want. And you can, I don't know why that's there. Okay. You can take this spiral, you can go into edit mode, and then we can grab this vertex right here and just grab it on the Y, move it a little bit, kind of straighten that up, and then extrude it out some like that. And then if we look from the top up here, you can see this isn't really like lined up, which is, doesn't have to be, but I prefer it to be. So I'm going to grab this vertex right here and then grab that on the X and just kind of line that up like that a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. I want to be able to move the slide. If we move it right now, it's going to act crazy because the curve, it kind of looks like a dancing noodle The curve is not going to move with the slide. So just grab both of these and then, my bad. Control P to parent, keep transform. And then now we can move it around and we can still go back later and edit the curve. So let's go ahead and spin that probably 90 degrees like that. And then push that out of the way. Now we can add in a plane, scale that up to something crazy like that. Go into edit mode, subdivide this like 4 or 5 times. I think that it's a little bit small. So let me just start over. So add the plane, let's scale it a little bit bigger. So maybe like, there we go. And then now go into edit mode and subdivide this a few times like that. That looks good. And then on the top orthographic view, let's deselect all of these. And then grab circle select. And I want to make like a wall over here and then a wall over here. So I'll grab all of these and all of these like that. And then let me just move this over again. And then we can extrude these up on the Z axis. Something like that. Maybe a little bit more. And then put that kind of in our room. This is going to give us like a sense of scale for the room. So probably put the camera like, I don't know, over here. Not too bad. And then we can adjust it a little bit. So we can keep playing with the camera angle. This is just kind of like rough sketch. And then let's put this back out of the way for a minute. Go back in here. Now, the way that I did the one in the preview that I showed you, I kind of had the slide coming out of the wall and then spiraling down into a pool. So again, back into the top orthographic view. And I think I want to put, I think we'll just do something just like that other one that I already did. So we'll just make circle select and we will cut out a pool area like maybe like that, maybe one more. Deselect these and then grab all these. That looks good. And then again, as you're doing this, just try to get a sense of scale for what it is that you want to build. So now we can grab, or I'm sorry, extrude these down a little bit, maybe like that. And that's the pool. So before we go too much further, back in edit mode, edge select. I want to bevel like the edges of the pool. And normally you would just hold Alt and then select your edge loop. But because we have poles, here, let me bring this up a little bit. Because we have poles, which is like, if you look over here, wow. Apparently we extruded at an angle somehow. Let me fix that. Okay. Huh. Apply scale. Okay. apparently I was extruding on, I don't know, maybe like the local Z axis or something. So anyways, got that fixed. Yep. In edge select mode, normally you would just hold Alt and then select your edge loop. That's not going to work on the pool. And I want to bevel the edges. And the reason it's not going to work is because if you look over here in the corners, if you go into vertex select mode and you see this one vertex right here, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edges connecting to that vertex. That's called a pole. So we can either reroute our edge loop, which is kind of a lot of work for just this scene, or just manually select the edges, which is what I'm going to do. So hold Alt, it's going to stop when it hits the pole, and then Alt Shift, get the next one, and then all the way around. And once we have them all selected like that, now we can Control B and then add a little bevel. Nothing crazy, just something to soften up the edge, because you don't want like a hard edge. It adds to the CG look. I mean, it's gonna look CG a little bit either way, but this just helps with the realism a little bit. So now back into object mode, you see how that edge looks a little bit softer than like these over here. So let's grab our pool, kind of position that a little bit, and then rotate that. And because we parented the curve and the slide, we can just scale the whole thing appropriately. Kind of match up to the scene a little bit. And then in the modifier, I want to have the slide go right through the wall, just like that. And then just like in the render that I've already made, we'll put a column right in the middle of here to make it look, you know, more interesting. So that's good. It's pretty much right in the pool, but not sitting on the bottom. And that's kind of what we want. Oh yeah, before I forget, add a cube to your scene. This little guy right up here. And rename it ref cube, and then just move it out of the way. We'll need it later. All right, so now over here, back in the edit mode, I'm going to go like, there's two ways we could do this. We could extrude these edges up and then make a ceiling, or we could add a loop cut and then make a ceiling. Let's try the loop cut. So we'll go like up here, like that. And then just grab this face right here. Control Shift all the way there. Well, that's not what I wanted. Control Shift, and then Control Shift. And actually no, don't even have to do that. Just grab this one face over here. Control Shift. All right, now extrude on the X-axis, and then snap that over there. Okay, now we have this room, and these sides are left open so that we can control lighting and everything else. And then just apply scale to that. And then now we need to model and add the windows. We're going to cut them out with a Boolean. So just shift, right click, drop your cursor, add a cube, zoom in here. And then easiest way I've found to make these windows. So say you want the window about that wide, scale it up, and then scale this cube to about how tall you want the window. So I want it like, maybe like that, I think would be good. And then in local view, go into edit mode, grab edge select, grab these edges here and here, here and here. Control B to bevel. Oh, apply scale. That always gets me. Control B to bevel, add some more geometry, and then hit C to clamp the bevel. And then there you go. That's our window shape. And we can scale that on the X-axis and then apply scale, grab that, move it back, and then add an array. And we'll just space out our windows. I want 4. I think that looks good. So we'll go something like that. I think it's good. And then select the cutting object first, which is our windows, and then the object that you want to cut second. And then with the bool tool, add on Control minus. And there you go. There's your cut. So just like that, we've got our windows. And then depending on how your Blender is set up, you might need to go apply the modifier. I'm using the add-on, so I don't have to do that. So check. Just kind of take a look at everything. You can try, go ahead, shade smooth. And then that looks pretty good. And then to actually light the windows, like to get that soft white kind of light, I'm going to drop the cursor over here. I'm going to add mesh plane, scale that to cover the windows like that. And then rotate it, apply scale, move it back a little bit. All right, so this plane, this is going to be our light for the windows. We'll get that set up in a minute. So you remember that ref cube back here that we made? We're just going to scale that by 5 so I can see it. And then I'm going to, down here, I'm going to go ahead and switch into rendered view. And we need a light. So let's grab this plane, new material, and we'll call it lights. Wow, I didn't mean to scream in cap lock. Lights, and then go down to emission, give it a value of 1. And then there we go. We're already kind of lighting up the scene a little bit. The camera won't see all of this out. It shouldn't see all of this out here, but let's go ahead and just scale it to be sure. So bring that in a little bit and then bring that down a little bit. Okay. And then there we go. That looks pretty good. And then I want to add a area light. The area light is going to act kind of like a fill light. So just put that up here, scale that up, and then get it kind of as high as you can get it, but not too high because you don't want shadows everywhere that we don't want them. And then let's go like 400. See what that looks like. So maybe like 800. Okay, maybe like 2,500. Just kind of increment this up until you find a nice balance. That's 5,000 right there. So make that a little bit bigger. Move it kind of this way. Move it that way. Just kind of want it to look like light is gently filling up the area. So I'm going to do 7,500. Okay, that's looking pretty good right there. So now that ref cube that I was telling you about, we're about to use it. So we're going to click our main pool room. We're going to add a new texture and we'll call this pool tiles. And then we'll just go, I already have a texture. You can use any tile texture for this. This is just the one that I have. Honestly, I don't even remember where I got it. But I'm going to use displacement, the normal. We might use the roughness and then the color. And by the way, I'm using Node Wrangler. So that's what's going on here. And then if you look in the rendered view, it's all at a scale. So if we're going to add other objects later, like the column that's going to go on the slide and stuff. And if we try to UV unwrap and match scale and all this, it's going to be kind of shitty because it's hard trying to remember and match the scale on different faces everywhere. So an easier way to do this is this ref cube that we have back here. We're going to use that to control the scale of the texture. So go over here to the mapping node and object to vector, and then we're going to pick that ref cube here. And then over here on all of our image textures, I'm going to select all of these. And while holding Alt, I'll change this to box projection. And then that's going to change all of these to box. And then now if you zoom in here to the scene, if I select this ref cube and I scale that ref cube, I can scale the texture everywhere from that one cube. And that's kind of a pretty big time saver for specifically for these pool rooms. It's like a huge time saver. This also works really good for backrooms renders because everything is using that same like yellow wallpaper and the carpet. So I'm already looking at this, and I like the scale. The scale is good, but I don't like the roughness, the roughness map. So I'm just going to use a color ramp, and then I'll drop that straight into the roughness. And then if we bring up these blacks, the black slider right here, you'll see everything gets really shiny. So we want to see the light reflecting, but we don't want a mirror surface. So I'm just going to crunch everything down a little bit. Maybe like right there. So we get some nice reflections through here, but it's not a mirror. You really don't want like a mirror. Okay, so that looks good. So now I want to add the column in the slide, and we've already added the roof, so it's kind of hard to see. So what I'm going to do is just Alt B and then drag that area right there. And then now we're in this clipped view. So we can see what we're doing. Just shift right click, drop our cursor right down there, and then add a cylinder. And then come down here. I'm going to grab this and then just snap it to the floor like that. And while I'm over here, I'll go into edit mode, face select. I'm going to turn on X-ray. Grab this bottom face and then cursor to selected. Back over here into object mode, origin to 3D cursor. And then now I can turn off X-ray mode. Now I can scale from the floor up without going through the floor. So I'm just going to go ahead and scale that up like that. And then that is about where I want it. So like, okay, so OBS crashed because that's what OBS does. So I've got it back up now, and the only little bit that didn't get recorded before I noticed that OBS had crashed was just adding the texture to this column here, and then over here on the wall, I added a cylinder and scaled it up, and then cut out the hole in the wall with a Boolean, and that way you can, it adds that visual reference that so it's obvious the slide is coming through the wall. All right. Anyways, we're just going to pick up where we left off. So we've got the tile texture. We need something for the slide, and make sure you're naming these as you go. Otherwise it just kind of becomes a pain in the ass. Which reminds me, let's go ahead and rename. So this is our window lights, and then I think this is the room itself. So just call this main room, and then rename this column. And yeah, just try to stay kind of organized with naming all of these things. So let's go ahead and put some kind of color on this slide. So this is pretty easy. We want something kind of like childlike or nostalgic, and I think red will be good. So put the base color on there, and then we want it to look like a bit of a shiny plastic, but again, not like a perfect mirror. So there's a couple of things that I like to do. Um, for one, go ahead and drop the roughness down. If you drop it all the way down, it looks like a mirror. I mean, if you're not paying attention, it looks good at first, but this is not what we want. So I'm just gonna raise that up like a little bit, and then kind of look at it, and then that's a lot better. That's better, but it could be a lot better. So what I want to do is we'll add a noise texture, and then go into a color ramp, and then just plug that into the roughness. This is a pretty simple setup, but for this kind of a scene, it's really effective. So same concept as with the tile. If you move this handle up, it's gonna get really shiny. So probably somewhere like in here, and then bring this one in just a little bit. And then if you change the scale, if you just kind of move it around, you can kind of see the areas that are being affected. So I'm just going to go to like 4. And then now you can see it's kind of like shiny here, shiny there, a little bit more rough there. And the roughness and the noise, we can just drop that down just a little bit. And the detail is fine. The scale, I put it at 4. All of the rest of this is fine. I might just bring that up just a tiny bit, a little bit more. Yeah. It doesn't need to be perfect. I'm just going to drop the scale a little bit more. And then there we go. Okay. I like that. That's good. Don't overcomplicate it. So one more thing that we can do to add a good bit of I don't want to say realism, but make it a lot more convincing, like for cheap, is ambient occlusion. So if we come over here and just add an ambient occlusion node, and then go into a color ramp, and then go into a mix shader, and we plug our BDSF into the mix shader, and then plug the mix shader in over here. So you can kind of see like this is like the inverse of what we want. And if we just check inside, and then I'm going to set the samples to like 30, and then play with the color ramp. Just put this down here. And then okay, there you can kind of see it. So if you look like right in here at these shadows on these, like where the pieces connect, and then as I'm moving the color ramp, you see it coming out now. So the more we move this up, the more, like way too obvious it is, but it's just exaggerated so that you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to bring that back down, just move that like a hair, and then just pull that off of like pitch black. And then, okay. Yeah. So, distance, I'm going to go 0.8. And then just so you can see the difference, without it, with it. And we can probably just back it off a little bit more. So without ambient occlusion and with it. And so that, like when you're far back, those shadows are catching on those smaller spaces, and it kind of helps helps whatever material you're adding it to have a little bit more definition. And now that I'm looking at it from a little bit further back, I'm going to up the roughness just a little bit, the shininess in the color ramp. And I think that's good. So that's our slide texture. Let's go ahead and rename that slide. And then now we can move on to adding water to the pool. And this is pretty easy. Before I get too far ahead of myself, I'm just gonna go ahead and I don't know, save this as something. Pools video. Again, shift right click, drop the cursor, and then we'll add a plane, and then go straight to the modifiers tab and add ocean. Just bring that up a little bit. All right. So if you go over here to spectrum and then where it says turbulent ocean, we're going to change that to shallow water. And then for the resolution up here, I'm just going to go 12, render 12, and then scale that up a little bit and get that positioned. And then under the waves section up here, I'm going to change the scale of the waves down to something low, like 0.2. And it's kind of hard to see right now, but if we go into solid view, you can kind of get like a rough idea what the water's going to look like. And you can play with these settings a little bit to get kind of what you like. I think that's probably going to be good. I'm just going to do like 0.15. Looks good. And then we go back into render view. And then now we're going to set up a water shader. So I'll just call this water. And this is pretty easy to do. Roughness 0, IOR 1.33 to match actual water. And then transmission 1. And then the color, we're just going to make it, you know, some kind of bluish, either like a blue green or like a bluish. I like blue. I think that looks better. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to move that up closer to the top of the pool. So like right there. One more thing that we can do. So it's not going to make a big difference in this scene, but in scenes that you're using a sun lamp, like in, I have another render that I did. Let me see if I can find it and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Here it is. So like setting up these water caustics, you can kind of see like these little like strips of light. If you're using a sun lamp, you can set this up really easily. I'll show you how to do that. It's not going to make a big difference in this scene because we're not using a really powerful light source. We've kind of got this like soft, more diffused light going on. But the way that you would do that is that you would come over here into the object data properties or object properties, excuse me, and then you go to shading down here, cast shadow caustics. And you can see it's not really making much of a difference right now. That's because you also have to go to your light source and under the same area, you have to enable cast shadow caustics. And I don't know if you can see it on YouTube. It's doing a tiny bit in here, but the light is really not strong enough in this setup. And then I don't think you actually enable it on like an area light. Yeah, no, I don't see it over here. Maybe it's under these settings. Yeah, so there it is. Okay, so on your regular light, like an area light, it's in the data object data properties under settings and then shadow caustics. So it's really not doing anything because like I said, we're not using a strong light. So I'm just going to turn it off. But like I showed you in that other render, that's how you would set it up. But for this scene, I'm just going to leave it off. Oh, that's one other thing I forgot to mention. Go back over here, turn it back on, just real quick. Shadow caustics. Maybe that's why I wasn't doing anything. You have to set up the surface beneath the water has to be set to receive shadow caustics. So down here, receive shadow caustics. There. Okay, now we can see a little bit better. I'm just, my brain is like all over the place today. So it's still not very strong. You can kind of see it. We'll leave it on. So anyways, that's our water setup. And then we need some kind of like a handrail going into the pool, and that's easy to set up. So just drop our cursor and then add a cylinder, come over here, and then same as before. I want to go into X-ray mode, face select, and then grab this bottom face, and then cursor to selected, object mode, and then origin to 3D cursor. And then now I can scale from the bottom. So this is, I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, it's not like when you're setting up the scene, people aren't going to be looking in the bottom of the pool. So just do something quick and dirty. Just go over here, just grab this, bring that down, and then over here in our camera view, you just kind of get like the general perspective and just kind of make sure it's not too big, not too small. So just do something like that, and then inset that face, and then come up on the z-axis. Now, as I'm doing this up here, I'm glancing down here for a sense of scale. So that's kind of how you know. I mean, if you're just working right here in front of it and you're just looking right here, you're gonna fuck it up. So bring this like, I don't know, like maybe like right here, and then drop the cursor right there, and then we'll go spin tool, X axis. We'll bring that up to like over there, like that, and push this out, like maybe like that, and then extrude this out, and then over here drop the cursor again, and then spin tool again, just kind of lock that to like 90 degrees, and then it's going to look funny. You have to push it around with these handles, so don't freak out. Just go over here, grab this other handle, and then kind of adjust to taste, and then extrude that down into the water. That's it. That's all you have to do. Nobody's going to see the bottom of that. It doesn't need to be perfect. So back into object mode, and then apply scale and rotation, and then go ahead and duplicate that, move it over, and there you go. There's your pool rails, or what, handrails, whatever you want to call it. So you go back into rendered view, and then the material for this is really easy also. So just add a new material. We'll call it handrail. Just turn the metallic all the way up, and then lower the roughness to like 0.2-ish, something like that. And then on the base color here, just kind of tweak that a little bit. If you don't want it super shiny, just up the roughness a tad. You could also just drop the metallic a little bit, and then just grab this other one, link material, and then that, you know, it's decent. That'll work. And then probably just grab these and shade smooth, and then that helps a little bit with the reflections and the lighting. So yeah, that's pretty much it. In the other render that I did, I added like a plant over here on the wall just to fill up some negative space. And then if you go, just, I also added like this rubber duck. I think I found it on Blender Kit. So rubber duck, just hit this box up here, check free first, and then is that one. Just add this one in here. And then just give that a second to come in. And then over here in the outliner, make sure you didn't accidentally add, when you drop stuff in from Blender Kit, if you have like another collection, or you've got like another group of objects and you're not paying attention and you've got that selected, you might drop it in there and then not be able to find it. So just kind of check over here. So you can click on an object, left click, and then hit S on your keyboard to select it. And then we'll just scale that up. And then just rotate it to something, to whatever. And we'll grab that and just kind of push it back here so it's kind of like floating in the pool uselessly. And hey, that's kind of like the pretty much the basics of the scene right there. You could add, I mean, you could add like a doorway or an arch, or I don't know, it's up to you. You got to figure out like what kind of storytelling you want to do and how you want to do it. I added the plant in the other one because I liked the contrast. I liked, you know, breaking up some of all these white tiles with something different. And then the duck in the water, or just like a lonely floating toy in the water, just was kind of like for something nostalgic and something, you know, also a little bit different to kind of break up some of the monotony, but also just having that one single thing in the water by itself kind of like tells a story of like something being alone or left behind. I mean, at least to me it does. So I thought that was a, you know, a nice touch. So yeah, let's go ahead and wrap this up. We can go over here to our output settings. I'm going to do 2560 by 1440. Just leave that, I don't know, let's do 125%. And we're not going to render this just yet. I'm just kind of setting this up. Go to render settings, 250 samples, that'll be fine. And then the noise 0.05. So a lot of these liminal scenes, if you're doing something like hyper clean, hyper realistic, you're going to want like a lower noise threshold and maybe higher samples and all that stuff. But for these kind of like liminal scenes, I like to add compositing. So I'll show you how to do that. So let's just go into our camera view, which, oh god, I have no idea what happened to that. Let's go back down here. Let's get the camera positioned where we want it. So maybe like something like that. And then let's just look. Just kind of take a minute to set this up, and I'll show you we're gonna cheat the perspective a little bit. So if we go over here to the camera settings, I'm gonna lower the focal length to like 28 millimeters, and then down here inside of the actual camera, I'm going to tweak this sensor size just a little bit. I'm gonna move this over like that, and then that's going to give us this, it's almost like faking a wide angle lens without a wide angle effect. I don't know, somebody who is smarter than me can explain how this works with cameras and lenses and all that. I just know that it works. So that's what I do, that's the look that I like, and I'm able to fit everything into the scene. So just go over here, go back to the camera view. Okay, so what I want to do is while in the camera view, just kind of line this up semi decently. I'm going to switch over to the compositor. Gonna click new. There's two ways to do this. The first way is to click backdrop, and if you have something rendered, it'll put it behind the node graph. I don't like doing that. What I like to do is I come up here where it says compositor and then hit always. And then now whatever changes we make down here, we can see up here in real time. So I'm just going to slide this over some, and then grab that and move that over. And I want to use everybody does this differently. This is personal preference. So you don't have to copy exactly what I'm doing. You just play around with it and figure out what you like. I'm going to start with an unsharp mask, and right off the bat, just drop this down to like factor 0.3, radius of like 4. It doesn't need to be insane. Just enough to kind of like make these edges kind of pop a little bit. And it's also kind of like a little bit of VHS vibe while you're at it. So unsharp mask, and then glare is optional, but again, in a scene like this where we don't have a lot of hard reflections, we don't have a sun lamp or, you know, any kind of like really, really hard light source, it's not going to do much. So we could actually just maybe skip that, and let's go to lens distortion, which throw some of this in here. So like 0.1 bit. That looks probably a little strong. Let's do 0.05. That looks better. It's again, it's all personal preference. I mean, it's almost kind of like found footage, kind of not. A lot of these like liminal space, like walking simulator games, kind of have this look baked in. This dispersion, normally do like normally do like 0.02, and that's going to give you a little bit of this chromatic abrasion around the edges of the, like where the lens effect is happening. And then there's a couple of other things that we can add, but I'm kind of running out of time here. So let's go to the last thing I want to do. We'll do a noise texture. Okay, we're going to drop that into a color ramp, into a mix color. Just move all of this over here. Okay. So I'm gonna put that in, I'm gonna put that into there. And then before we hook up the image, let's just kind of preview what's going on here. So we can raise this handle to get a little bit more contrast, and then we're just going to take the scale way up. So like maybe like 150, 175 even maybe. And then we're gonna drop the roughness. So we kind of get this like a little bit more blobby. And then, you know, I'm gonna go a little bit higher even, maybe like 225. And then just kind of find a nice range in here. And then now we're gonna plug this in. And then if we go to, I can't remember, I think it might have been add. Add, I don't think it was mix. Maybe it was mix. Yeah, mix. Okay. So very, very low mix. And that gives us some noise. You can go a lot more in depth with this and like kind of like get the noise to actually feel like it's more in the image. Maybe I can do that on a different video. It's not hard to set up. It takes a little bit of footwork. And then but this is good for now. It's just kind of like quick and dirty. And then before we go all the way to the render and just pump this out, come over here to your main area light and play with the power of the light, because that's what's going to, the light in the room and the exposure around the edges is what's going to give it a more or less liminal vibe. And up here we're at 7600, so if I just drop this to 5000, you can see immediately different vibe. And when you get to this point, go ahead and play with it and tweak it with the compositor on before you start bouncing renders and committing and, you know, all that. And you have a much better idea of kind of the look you're going for. And there's one other thing that I kind of feel like I want to do, and that's the slide looks a little bit saturated. So I want to come over here to the base color and just drop the saturation some. Kind of like make it match the duck a little bit better, because you see the yellow in the duck is not that saturated. So I'm gonna call that done. Just go ahead and save this, and then just double check your render settings one more time. 128, 250 samples. That's the viewport. You don't have to worry about that. Noise 0.05, and just go ahead and render that out real quick. Just give that a quick second. And also I put on my my output up there. 125%. So it's going to be, I don't even know what you call it, 2K, 2.5K, so I don't know. So it'll render, and then it'll do the compositing, and then there you go. That's how you make a liminal pool room. It's up to you what other elements you want to add, how you want to tell the story, or if you want to change the size of the room or the windows or stuff like that. We could have gone back and we could have added bevels on the windows to get a little bit of a softer edge, like we did with the pool. That's just kind of like the the basics of it. And I'm just gonna save this, and yeah, that's it. Go make a pool room. All right, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, if you found it helpful, please give me a like and a subscribe. I'm more or less a brand new channel, so that helps me out a lot. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Later.